Let's get straight to the point. The blood is still warm on your hands. Senators scatter like rats from the Senate floor, their togas splattered red. But you stand frozen over Caesar's body. 23 wounds. You counted. You always count. His eyes find yours one last time, and you see it. Not surprise, not even anger. Just the terrible weight of confirmation. He'd known. Of course he'd known. Your dagger is the cleanest. You made sure of that. Even in betrayal, you couldn't bear to make him suffer. But before you understand how you got here, you need to go back. You meet him when you're both young and Rome is smaller. He's brilliant, charismatic, impossible to ignore. You're clever enough to be useful, loyal enough to be trusted. The friendship is real. That's what makes everything that comes after so much worse. You believe in him. When he says he wants to save the Republic, you believe that too. You don't yet understand that belief is just the first compromise. The years pass. Caesar rises. You rise with him. It's intoxicating, being in the orbit of someone who bends history to his will. Consul General. The man who conquered Gaul. You're there for it all. The strategy sessions, the private doubts he shows no one else, the moments of unexpected tenderness between the bloodshed. He trusts you, completely. That trust is a golden chain around your neck, growing heavier each year. The Senate fears him. You can't blame them. You've watched him calculate odds that would paralyze other men, make decisions that cost thousands of lives without a moment's hesitation. But you've also seen him weep for his daughter, laugh at terrible jokes, forgive enemies who deserve death. The cognitive dissonance is exhausting. You learn to live with it. Everyone in his orbit does. Survival means accepting contradictions. The civil war comes. Of course it comes. Pompey, the Rubicon. The die is cast. You're there when he says it, watching him burn the last bridge to legitimacy. The Republic tears itself apart. You tell yourself it's necessary. You tell yourself Caesar will restore order, then step down. You tell yourself a lot of things. The human capacity for self-deception is remarkable, a competitive advantage in this line of work. Rome falls, Pompey dies badly. Caesar becomes dictator. Temporary, he says, just until stability returns. You've worked in Roman politics long enough to know what temporary means. It means forever. It means the Republic is already dead. You're all just pretending to feel its pulse. But here's the thing. He's good at it. The reforms are genuine. Debt relief. Land for veterans. The Julian calendar, for fuck's sake. The man is literally reorganizing time. You watch him work 18-hour days, trying to save a system he's simultaneously destroying. The irony would be, funny if it weren't so tragic, if you weren't so complicit. Then he starts wearing the purple, accepting divine honours, his face on coins like he's already a god. Cleopatra and her son visiting, foreign royalty in the heart of Rome. You see the old Caesar disappearing, replaced by something else, something that sits too comfortably in absolute power. Your friend is still in there. You glimpse him sometimes in private moments, but he's drowning in his own mythology. The Senate seethes, whispers in the baths, coded messages, late-night meetings. Cassius approaches you first, lean and hungry, that one. He's destroying everything we believe in, Cassius says. You want to argue? You can't, because it's true. The Republic you grew up worshipping, the system of checks and balances, the sacred tradition of shared power. Caesar is dismantling it all. With the best intentions, that's what makes it unforgivable. You tell yourself you'll stay loyal. You've been through too much together. He's your friend. He saved your life in Gaul. You've shared wine and strategy and the weight of command. Friendship has to mean something, even in Rome, especially in Rome. Then comes the rumour. He's going to be crowned king. The word Romans have reviled for 5 centuries. Brutus finds you in the forum. He's your brother-in-law, descended from the Brutus, who expelled the last king. The symbolism is so heavy, it's almost comical. We need you, he says. You're the one he trusts most. Without you, it won't work. The trap closes. You're too close to say no. You know too much. You're too valuable. Refuse, and you become a liability. Join them, and you murder your friend. These are your options. In the court of an emperor, voluntary resignation doesn't exist. You spend weeks trying to find another way. There isn't one. Caesar won't stop. The Senate won't bend. Someone's going to die. It's just a question of who and how many. You do the math. Caesar's assassination might save the Republic. His kingship definitely kills it. The needs of the many. The greater good. All the usual justifications people use when they're about to do something unforgivable. Something breaks inside you. It doesn't shatter. That would be cleaner. It just cracks. A hairline fracture that will spread for the rest of your life. The Ides of March, the theatre of Pompey, Caesar's Senate meeting. You've been briefed on the plan. 23 senators, daggers hidden in togas, surround him, strike simultaneously. It has to look like a collective action, not a personal vendetta. That's important. For history. You almost warn him that morning. The words are on your tongue when he greets you. I had the strangest dream last night. You smile, say nothing. Cowardice disguised as resolve. The Senate fills. Caesar enters, and the world narrows to a pinpoint. He's wearing white, which will show the blood beautifully. You didn't plan that, but the symbolism is perfect. The conspirators move into position. Trained choreography. You've all practiced our roles. Tilia Simba approaches with a petition. Caesar waves him off. Simba grabs his toga, the signal. Everything happens fast. Casca strikes first, badly, catching Caesar's shoulder. Caesar grabs for his stylus, going for Casca's eyes. Still fighting. Still. Dangerous. The others swarm in, clumsy and desperate. It's not elegant. Assassination never is. You're supposed to strike early. You can't. You watch your friend fight 20 senators, blood spreading across white cloth, and you're paralyzed. He's not supposed to fight back. He's supposed to submit, accept the historical necessity. But Caesar has never submitted to anything in his life. Why would he start now? He sees you, makes eye contact across the chaos. And you understand, he's been waiting for you, not waiting to see if you'll strike, waiting for you to do what you both know you're going to do. The confirmation, not the betrayal. That's what will kill him. You step forward, raise the dagger. His eyes don't leave yours. The blade slides between his ribs, clean, precise. You made sure to learn the anatomy. Even now, you can't bear to make him suffer. Caesar falls. The Senate erupts in chaos. Some conspirators are crying, some laughing. Cassius is shouting about liberty. The whole thing is grotesque. You just stand there, watching blood pool on marble, your hands shaking so badly you drop the dagger. They'll tell the story differently later. They'll say he said, "Et tu, brute?" or "You too, child?" They'll make it poetic, tragic. The truth is messier. He just looked at you, pulled his toga over his face, died. The next part is history. You know this already. The conspirators make speeches about freedom. The people riot. Mark Antony turns the mob against you all with one brilliant funeral oration. The Second Civil War begins. You flee Rome. Your life becomes a series of defeats and retreats. The Republic doesn't rise from Caesar's corpse. It rots with him. You die at Philippi. Antony and Octavian corner you. Your armies are shattered, your cause lost. You ask your servant to hold your sword while you run onto it. Poetic, efficient. You're 43 years old. Caesar was 55 when you killed him. The math never stops. But here's the most ironic part. Killing Caesar accomplished nothing. Less than nothing. Within 2 years, the Republic is more dead than Caesar ever made it. Octavian becomes Augustus, the first emperor. Absolute power, but with better branding. Everything you murdered your friend to prevent, except now it's permanent. Constitutional, divine, and Octavian is Caesar's heir, his adopted son. The boy learned everything from the man you killed. Learned it better, in fact. Learned not to be merciful, not to trust, not to stop before the crown is secure. You created him. Every conspirator did. Caesar might have restored the Republic eventually, might have stepped down. You'll never know. You murdered the possibility, along with the man. You think about that as the sword enters your chest, about friendship betrayed, about good intentions paving the road to hell, about how the people who think they're saving the world usually just make it worse. Rome doesn't need saviors. It never did. It needs people who understand that power corrupts everything it touches, even friendship, even love, even the certainty that you're doing the right thing. Your last thought is of Caesar's eyes, the confirmation. He'd known you would do it, and he'd loved you anyway. That's the wound that never closes. Not the dagger, the love. The blood is still warm on your hands. Senators scatter like rats from the Senate floor, their togas splattered red, but you stand frozen over Caesar's body. 23 wounds. You counted. You always count. You'll count them for the rest of your life. All 12 days of it.